Hey everyone, happy Monday because this will be coming out on Monday. Welcome to another edition of Cornerstone Conversations. I believe this is episode 4. Hard to believe that we're already on episode 4. I think we love the traction and momentum that we are getting with these podcasts. And I am so honored to be joined by Lesa Kurtz today. Lesa, thank you for joining us. I don't know if you're in Delaware at the beach or in Pennsylvania, but I love the flexibility that we have of this business to be able to. The Lesa, I tell my clients this all the time when I am able to run appointments. The best thing about COVID, and I think is the only good thing that came out of COVID, is that we do not have to be in our cars anymore, and we can work from the comfort of our homes. We just had a conversation about our dogs. I know our dogs love it, but thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. And to answer your question, I'm in Pennsylvania. We're going back to Delaware April 15th, so we're excited about that.
Well, that is awesome, and Lesa, highlight on that real quick the awesome how the flexibility is of this business, and how maybe it's a little bit easier now to maybe do this part time. I know you're full time, but like,
Right.
hey, before maybe it's like, oh, hey, I can't go this weekend to the beach. I really need to work. But the weather's going to be so nice. I want to go. Well, you know what? I can work while I'm there. How has that been since 2020? How has that helped you in this sense?
Oh, it's been wonderful. And I was really on the ground floor of that because I come in at the end of 2019. So I was right there when COVID started and we switched to virtual. So anywhere that you have a license, you can work. It's a beautiful thing. It's an absolutely beautiful thing. So it makes things so much easier.
I agree. I love meeting new people. I love traveling the country, and to be able to do it from the comfort of our home. I know it's not like the same thing, just to meet different people. I mean, I have clients from all different states, and I'm sure you do as well. It's amazing to see what we see on our group meet. A friend of ours lives up in Maine, protected someone in Florida, and then Georgia like an hour later. It's just so awesome to see that. But the flexibility of going from, hey, I don't have to give up my weekend plans because it's a nice weekend. We want to go last minute because I need to work. But hey, I can still work while I'm there. So, yeah, you and I came in kind of like at the same time. I worked a little bit of 2019, and then
Hmm.
bam, 2020 hit. And I was doing in person, face to face final expense sales. So I'm like, I don't want to get these people's grandparents sick. So, yeah, that's definitely a whirlwind. So Lesa, last year was a phenomenal year for you. You were able to hit elite silver producer, which people who are listening on. So Lesa did over $100,000 in issue paid business last year. So Lesa, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I know you're doing this business full time. Kind of give some tips of what your day to day looked like as a full time person. Are you working like 7 days a week, all these hours type thing? And, what advice would you give to someone who's new or struggling in this business about you and what your kind of background was before you came here?
Sure, sure. So, you know, my day is usually in the office from like 8 or 9 till 7 p.m. Okay, that's usually what my day's like. A lot of phone calls. Okay, I try to run appointments as we go on the fly, you might say, instead of setting appointments. That doesn't
Mhm.
always work that way, but that's usually my typical. Now, if I have somebody that will meet me at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, I'll absolutely do it. But if I don't have any evening appointments, usually 7 o'clock is when I cut off because I have a family and I need to make dinner and that type thing. So that's kind of how I run things. I do work some occasional Saturdays. I like to make Saturday morning phone calls. I work some occasional Saturdays. I don't work every Saturdays. I personally do not work Sunday. There's nothing wrong with it. That's just personally how I am. So, if you're brand new and you're struggling, I would say the biggest piece of advice that I have is keep your mental health, keep your mind straight because that's just so vital and so important.
I couldn't agree more, Lesa. And I love that you said the flexibility of being able to be with your family. Now that I'm home, I have a wife that's in school, still works. I have the ability to be able to take a break, cook dinner for her, have a conversation with her, and still continue to go. The great thing about it is that you and I are both on the East Coast, so we're Eastern time zone. if we needed to work later into the night, we can get licenses in other states. It's not like we have to get on a plane right then to go out there. So, I love the flexibility of what you said. You can pick and choose, but your time zone of when you're working is when you're working. Now, to someone who's new, Lesa, that doesn't know too much about this industry, they're probably thinking, wow, from what I think you said 8 to 9 to like 7 o'clock, that seems like a long day. Is it worth it? And what would you kind of say to that person who's kind of working, 9 to 5 and struggling to make ends meet?
I would say it's absolutely worth it. The money we make in this business is absolutely phenomenal. And I appreciate your congratulations about last year. Last year was actually a start over year for me. So I was nowhere near where I wanted to be, but I had to take that into consideration that I was starting over. So
I love that because we have the ability to kind of like look in the mirror and be like, hey, let's have a restart year. Where a lot of people, Lesa, their restart is they walk in and they got a brown box on their desk, and then they got to go find something else to do, reinvent
right.
themselves. So the flexibility to wake up in the morning and see the boss. I mean, our mentor JK, my dad John Kite, we had him on a couple weeks ago. You're probably going to hire and rehire and fire yourself on the daily basis. But talk about that in a sense. What did that kind of look like, and what kind of changed for you, where it's like it kind of like started to click for you?
Um, that's a good question. You mean this year or in general or?
Just in from last year, where you kind of hit the groove to be able to hit that, what
Mhm.
kind of like changed for you in that sense from previous years, and then now you're continuing to continue those good habits into this year.
Yeah, so, like I said, starting over, buying leads again, being consistent again, that was what it was all about. You wanted me to be transparent, so I'm going to be transparent. In 21 and 22, I had a lot of loss in my life, and it really affected me. It affected my job. It affected everything. So that's why I call 2025 my start over year, because I had a couple years where I just really was barely surviving, to be honest with you, business wise and
Hmm.
everywhere else. So I had to get back on the calls. Okay. I had to start buying leads again. And I just tried to restart from the ground up, get used to making phone calls and setting appointments and just being consistent in what I do. And I'll be honest with you, I still struggle with that. Sometimes I'm more consistent than others. So I'm a work in progress, aren't we all?
Yes, you're exactly right, and I love what you said. You highlighted a key word in there, and that's consistency, and
Mhm.
going out and doing it every day. A person who's on our daily coaching calls, and you can highlight that in a second. But we have training calls to help you get into that kind of groove every day. But he said he's been doing this for 20 plus years. Lesa, he had a great week last week, and kind of mundane week the week after that. But it's like it's the ebb and flows in the business. You'll have one day you'll have a great day, and then the next day it's like you feel like you can't do the business correctly.
Right.
So it's definitely, you got to keep that headspace. And I think the best advice we've heard from a top producer is, so you got to stay on that 10th floor. You can't get
Yes.
down into the basement, and you can't get up to the penthouse, because that crash is just going to be awesome. So it sounds like you've definitely been able to master staying on that 10th floor. Do you think that has been a game changer?
It is an absolute game changer. I'm all about positive affirmations. Naturally, thankfully, I have a positive attitude. I was kind of raised that way, so that helps a lot. So
Hmm.
I keep that in the forefront. And when somebody gets around me and they're not very positive, I'm the first one to go like this. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the negativity. So keep it positive. But the 10th floor, I couldn't think of that. Thank you for reminding me, because I couldn't remember what number it was, but I've heard that before, and I like that. That is so very important. And there's days that as long as I've been doing this, there's days it's a struggle to be on the 10th floor. So
Hmm.
it's something you have to constantly work at, and keep your mind sharp and ready, and have your positive affirmations. And my girlfriend taught me this years ago to have a little notebook. This is when we ran face to face.
Hmm.
Have a little notebook of your successes, so if you're having a day you're not very successful, you can look back and see, hey, look what I did, to kind of bring you out of it.
You're exactly right, and I love the notebook analogy because I had in my car, and in some spots I do, and I think my wife thinks I'm crazy, but I would have sticky notes of positive affirmations just in my car, just so I can see it, just to know that I'm still worthy. I didn't put it over the speedometer or anything like
Right,
that, so I
right.
was I was able to see, but just in different places where I could see it, just like if I had a bad appointment, I get in my car and that was like the first thing that I saw. So that's
Mhm,
definitely very key, is one, staying positive. And it's just the great thing about this business, Lisa, is like I feel like a lot of people in America wake up and they're not excited because they're doing the same stuff every day. What I
mhm,
love is that when I close my eyes at night, I don't know what is going to be in my next work day when I wake up. I don't
mhm.
know who I'm going to meet or if they need me, whether they're nice or rude in that sense, but it's going to bring a new challenge to my day because you just don't know what you're going to encounter, whether that's good or bad, in those regards.
That's very true. That's very true. And you kind of touched on this a while ago. It's a blessing and a curse to be your own boss. Because you do have to be structured, you have to be disciplined. And when I am having a bad day, I think about that because I don't want to go back to working for somebody else. First of all, I'd make peanuts. No offense out there to anybody, but we get paid very well for what we do. We work hard, do we not?
Yeah, we
And
do.
I also want to speak to the part-time, full-time thing. I think part time is the way to come into this business. I think that's an absolutely fabulous way to do it. The only reason I come in full time is because I was a licensed banker. So I was in
Okay.
the banking industry, had a life insurance license. So I couldn't do both. I had to cut it off and come here. So that's what I did. I don't regret it. It's not an easy way to do it, but it seems like I don't pick the easy way anyway. So, you know, I was right
You
at
know,
home there.
Lisa, I love that. And, some people have to, they can't dip their toe into the swimming pool to see if it's cold or warm or not. They got to run full speed and jump in. And whether it's cold or warm when they jump, when their body first hits, some people have to do that. And I agree with what you said. Now, some people, the situation that Lisa was in where she had to go in, that might be your situation.
Right.
But like some people, Lisa, they feel afraid or intimidated by the 1099 commission role. They're like, what happens if I don't do this? Although it can, once you develop a skill set, just like a normal job, it becomes a routine and you can dictate your cash flow. But
Right.
I agree with you coming in, it can be very intimidating. Um, so Lisa, so you were in the banking industry.
Mhm.
How did you kind of find, you already had your life insurance license. How did
Right.
you find life insurance, and how did you find the Cornerstone group in Equus?
Well, that's an interesting story. And to talk about, the 1099, I said I was not doing 1099 again. I did some stints of 1099. I have a business background, business to business. Most of my background was business to business.
Okay.
And some of it was 1099, some of it was not. I worked for a Fortune 500 company for 9 years. So I had that part of things, but that was a salary plus commission, which, as you know, when you have that, they work you.
Hmm.
But anyway, so I was in banking. I was very stressed out, but I was in banking, and my husband met someone at our church that was in the Cornerstone group, and he started talking to my husband about coming on board and becoming an agent, and he came in first, and he went to a conference in. I think Philadelphia was the first one he went to. There was
Okay.
like a little conference in Philadelphia, and he came back and he said, "Lisa, this is for you." I'm like, "I don't want to hear it." I'm not doing 1099 again. I'm just not doing it. I don't want to hear it. Let me alone. So then he went to one. There was another one coming up in Baltimore, and he pretty much just stayed on me. He's like, "You've got to go. You've got to go. You've got to go." So I'm one of these people. If I call off sick, I'm basically dead. When I'm supposed to be at work, I'm at work. So I had to tell a little white lie that I wasn't feeling well, which I hated. I was actually in Baltimore for a conference. We went down and stayed the night because it was wintertime. And
Hmm.
I heard Rob Jones speak. Rob Jones was there. I'm pretty sure JK was there. But as I was listening to everything, it occurred to me I want everything these people have. So Will and I come home. We talked a little bit. I gave my notice at the bank and started November 15th of 2019.
That's phenomenal. And I just love how different things move, whether you're, believe God has a hand on your life or not. You say one thing, I'm never going to do it. And then here you are several years later, still doing it and crushing it. And, I love that. You never know never say no to anything without, maybe looking at it for real. Because you definitely could have looked at it and be like, I definitely don't think this is for me, and then
Mm-hmm.
you go and do it, and a door is already open for you. You just got to walk through it and run through that. So I love that in there, and I love that he was able to push you and guiding you to be able to do that. um so Lisa, we were kind of talking this about the call. So in the world of art industry, what attracts a lot of people to it is the lead aspect. Okay, there's several
Mm-hmm.
different leads at different cost, depending on how they are formed, whether they're handwritten and not handwritten. I know you're kind of you've worked both before. Both are phenomenal. So
Mm-hmm.
you know what you did last year, I don't think was on, what typically is what we call like direct mail mortgage protection leads. We have a phenomenal partnership with an insurance company that's running ads, and we're able to help them find the life insurance that they need. So kind of like talk about that, the polar opposites of the two, and any advice of how the mindset of how you dial them or run the
Mm-hmm.
appointments. And I know a lot of people who might watch this who are licensed. They heard you earlier, like, oh my gosh, she runs the appointment right then and there, like on the fly. Like, I don't know if I could do that. It's like I gotta feel like I gotta prepare, but in
Mm-hmm.
that sense, it's like if they're there, you gotta go. So kind of like hit on that and the mindset of that.
Well, that I think comes with experience. And I'm sure you can relate to that as well. When you're a brand new agent, that might be a little mind boggling to think about. And it was new for me too, I'll be honest with you, because, you know, I come in starting with mortgage protection, which a lot of people did. Okay.
Hmm.
And I ran mortgage protection for quite a while and was very successful at it. And I really liked it. So when I was coming back in again, I did some mortgage protection, but I started with the ethos because it's a much better price point. So
Hmm.
that's what kind of made me gravitate towards the ethos leads. It's a different clientele, and I think, if I may say this, there's more C-suite people, meaning executive people, that are
Hmm.
on there looking for life insurance. Not that one is any different or any better than the other. It's just a little bit different. They're going on looking for coverage, and whereas someone's filling out a form, they're interested too. So there's no right or wrong. They're both great. I just gravitated over to the ethos side because I was starting over, and cost point was pretty forefront on my mind. I had to think about
Yeah.
that. But like I said, I think with experience comes being able to do it, on the fly.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and you should gravitate to definitely getting started. Price point. You definitely want to get the marbles out. It seems like
Sure.
we were talking with a bunch of new people yesterday, and you get back into their shoes and you see the fear, and it's like, and I said this to them, I said, if I sat here all day and went through everything that I've experienced since 2019, it's going to scare you even more because it's something that you have to learn by doing on a day. I can't give you all these years of knowledge. And I think, if you relate it to something at work, you have new training. You come in, you do the training for that job,
Hmm.
starting out. So you have to be able to do that. But it's kind of funny of what you not funny, but you found these, and it was like a sweet spot for you because you said you've done the business to business.
Hmm.
So when working with people, find something that who you relate to. I love the final expense market because I feel like I'm sitting down having a conversation with my grandparents. If you like that, then maybe that's your clientele. If you like the mortgage protection and middle income people, marketplace, mortgage protection, and still final expense could be that. And same with the ethos leads, but
Mhm.
that's definitely key in that sense. And do you feel like that's kind of helped you, from your past and have those conversations now?
Oh, absolutely. And I realized this early on, all the experiences I've had to this point led me right here.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It prepared me for this. This is not an easy job by any stretch of the imagination. It's a great job. It can be a fun job. Um, but maybe it's easy, but it's not simple. Maybe that's the way to say it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So there's a lot of moving parts. You've got to be organized. You've got to be checking on things. You got to be taking care of your customers. There's a lot that goes on. So absolutely, that experience meant everything. I probably wouldn't have been as successful if I had come into this like some of these 20-year-olds are coming in. Good for them. I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe I'm selling myself short, but I don't know. Actually, I did life insurance in my 20s, but it was a little bit, it was different. I was a captive agent, but so maybe I would have done better than I think, but I admire them so much.
You're spot on in that regards. Everything that you experienced in life brought you to this moment. It definitely happens to some people. If you experience a traumatic injury, or experience in life of maybe someone passing away and they didn't have life insurance, you can relate to people. This is a relatable business. And Lisa, we were on a leaders call today. Anyone can do this for sure, but you got to be disciplined. You got to be able to work.
Right.
And why the insurance industry pays so well is because you got to learn so much and change with the business every day. I said to those group of people yesterday, you're never going to get bored because you're always learning something new every single day.
Hmm.
It seems like that pretty much is you're learning something every single day. And yes, it is hard, but if you're willing to do it, I mean, it's gonna, and you can see from that from your year last year, just the working hard and being consistent in that aspect. Any other comments on that?
No, I don't think so. No, I
Okay.
think you summed it up very well.
And I love that. So Lisa, when you're kind of like doing your presentation, we'll talk about when you're doing the business to business side.
Hmm.
A lot of people are like, who might see this as like, I just need like something. I need something. What am I maybe doing wrong? Maybe they're not getting it because they don't have the daily coaching calls. So, you're calling people, you're running them right on the fly. What are you kind of like looking for? What kind of seems like your ideal client? And Lisa, this is gonna what I'm about to say might seem crazy to some people, is that you know you become their agent, and they might want it, but is it best for you to work with them? And that's a kind of like a crazy thing too, is like, yes, we want all customers, we want to help all families, but once you become like a part of them, you're a part of their family and they're a part of your family as well, so you can definitely pick and choose. So when you're going through the presentation, what seems like the best ideal client, someone who can't meet on the spot, how do you kind of like overcome that, in setting an appointment, or and how does your appointments kind of look now?
Well, you know, and I can't always run them on the spot because a lot of these C-suite people are working. So
Hmm.
sometimes we do have to set appointments. Sometimes they're at lunch and they'll take time. But I think one of the most important things in the appointment, whether it's, an internet lead, whether it's a mailback lead, you need to set the table. You kind of need to set the expectation. So I'll come back to that. The ideal client to me is somebody that knows what they want. They're in good health, they can qualify for it, and they're willing to spend the money. That's the
Hmm.
ideal client to me. So, but I set the table and let them know, I'm going to get you pre-qualified for coverage. Then I'm going to shop to get the best program for you. Then we're going to put a request in for coverage. So this is what we're going to do. I had a lady yesterday. Well, why don't you call me back in 6 months? That's a little more than I wanted to spend. I said, you know what? You qualify today. Tomorrow's not promised. Let's just start with this. So I just backed her down to a shorter term. We'll convert it in a couple years. She was happy as a clam, got approved yesterday. So you have to guide people and lead them a little bit too, because they're not going to do it in 6 months. They're just not going to. They're not going to call you back tomorrow. It's just not going to happen. We're there to help them today.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You don't know what the circumstances are going to be, in 6 months. The same person we listened to today, he had this story. I've heard it several times, but it popped up the other day. He had an appointment with a lead. The lady had several months to live, and he was like, I can't really do anything for you that would make sense. But her husband was healthy, and she was like, you need to do this. So he helped him with, I don't remember the amount in coverage, but he got him instantly approved. He got a call a couple days later, Lisa, saying that the guy was killed on his way to work on his motorcycle.
Oh my goodness.
And so the mom was able to get the insurance policy check, and then she only had a couple months to live because it was terminal cancer, but the aunt was still able to get that money to be able to raise the kids. So you just never know. Lisa, I always tell people, it's like,
Right.
we're not promised tomorrow.
Right.
We don't wake up in the morning and be like, you know what, I'm having that funny feeling in my arm. I think it's a good day to have like a heart attack or a stroke or anything like that. So you're definitely right in leading people to what they want to do, because a lot of people want to be resistant. It's like taking your dog outside and they get that smell and it's like, come on, we gotta continue. But it's like, oh, they just want to be on that point. So I love how
Right.
you set the table
Mhm.
in that regards, and how you kind of like back that down right there. You knew she needed it. She knew she needed it.
Right.
It was the price point. So Lisa, I don't know, and maybe you had kind of covered it. So obviously she had like said, can you like call me in like 6 months,
Mhm.
type deal. And let's just say for this instance, she didn't say it was because of price, but she said like she in 6 months. For a new agent, what is something like you knew it was triggered because of probably it is price. She needs it. So what would you have said to her if she said, "Can you just give me some time to think about it? Can you call me back in 6 months?" type thing. It's just not going to work for me right now. But she doesn't mention price as well. But you kind of might know that it has to do with price. So what would you have said to her, and what can a new agent say in that sense to that client?
First of all, it's almost always price. It's almost always price. So I just have that in the back of my mind. So I simply would say something like you said, tomorrow's not promised. You qualify today. So let's look at less coverage. Something's better than nothing. Let's look at a lower term and we'll convert it down the road. So that's exactly what I did with her. She kind of indicated that it was more money than she wanted to spend. So that's why I went from a 20-year term to a 10-year term and told her we'll convert it in a couple years. And that made
I,
her very happy.
I love that, because I feel like you kind of like had the golden egg, because like 9 times out of 10 is like they won't tell you that it has to do with price, although it pretty much is to deal with price. Because Lisa, I texted this person the other day who said that they weren't interested, um, in getting the information. And this was a lead up in, I think, in Wisconsin. I said to not be interested and to handwrite it and to walk out in the freezing cold in Wisconsin. You cannot be not interested anymore, type thing. So these people take the time. They're looking for the coverage. They
Yes.
wouldn't have taken the time. Something happened in their life, whether just to go online to Ethos, online to another ad, something to fill out or to call in. So I love that you're able to work with her and still find the protection in place. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way, but
Of course.
that's why we meet with several people. Lisa, coming up on someone who may not qualify, or looking for the amount of coverage what they're looking for. What do you kind of say to them in that regards? How do you kind of pivot into a direction like, hey, I know you need us. We just need to pivot in another direction.
Yeah. So that comes to, what I say in the beginning is to get you qualified for coverage. And something is better than nothing. Because, there's a lot of people out there that want a $500,000 policy or $1 million policy and they think they're going to get it for $49.95 a month. That's very unrealistic. So we kind of have to get them into reality, you might say. And we can't insure everybody, and we certainly don't close everybody. If we could
Mhm.
close everybody, we wouldn't make any money. You know,
Mhm.
so I just
Everyone
believe
everyone would have insurance, and there wouldn't be any use of us.
right.
And
That's exactly right.
and I love what you say. We have to find what you qualify for, because a lot of people who might listen to this, you said it earlier, but captive. You have one company. We have the ability to shop for our clients for several insurance companies to find the best affordability on their rates and the coverage that they are looking for based on affordability. I said this to a group of people yesterday. The lady asked, I have something about like a 65-year-old, and I don't know where to go or anything like this. And it's like, um, you know, in that situation, you don't know what the 65-year-old can even qualify for or what they want to be able to accomplish. And I said, look, I've met with 80-year-olds who could qualify for a term policy, who is a lot healthier than someone in their 30s. And it's
Hmm.
just, and that's what, was mentioned earlier. It's like, you don't know what is going to, you're going to see out in your day. That's what keeps you on the toes, and that's what's really great to see. So I love you highlighting that, and thank you for sharing that story. Um,
You're
Lesa,
welcome.
any tips for agents that are struggling, or new agents that are coming into the business that you might have wish you kind of have known when you were getting started or in that point of struggle?
I would say, stay close to your upline. Get on the daily coaching calls if you can. And I understand a lot of people, might be working, they're part time. Listen to the recording. You go through the training online. If you can, hop on some of the Zoom calls that happen during the day and just listen. So just be patient with yourself. It takes some time, you know.
I love that, and you kind of hinted at that. I want you, as we move to wrapping up, the culture here with the Cornerstone Group and with Equus, and we certainly have highlighted in past episodes the our great partnership with Integrity Marketing Group. What have you kind of seen from definitely the past in working in insurance, different from now? And I feel like, Lesa, we are kind of spoiled. We do have the ability because they want us to they want to see us succeed really
Hmm.
badly and are putting in great things where a lot of people might not have it. So someone who's watching this, who's not a part of this, that want to be a part of this, can you highlight on that and how awesome it is, even going through, the struggle? They're not going to see you any less different than if you were at the very top.
Right. So it's a night and day difference, between being in insurance previously and being in insurance now. And the biggest thing is the support we have. Number one, we have the Equus back office. We've got all the training there. We've got the gold standard coaching call. I mean, they just integrity and Equus, they're pouring into us all the time. And there's more and more tools that are coming out, through integrity. So I don't, I can't speak to other IMOs out there. I only know what I hear, but
Mm-hmm.
I think we're at the best place we can be, and we get the best support that's out there.
I agree, spot on. I was talking to those same people yesterday, Lesa, and I was like looking at them and I was mad at them. And I was like, and I said it, I'm like, I'm jealous of you guys. I'm like, because you guys have it easier than when we got started in 2019. And we had,
Oh
you
my,
know,
yes.
you had mobile apps, but it's like we have to call the insurance carrier. You still have to do that. But it's like you got Integrity Connect where you can figure out what product and, a whole list of stuff there. And I remember another integrity partner on our trading call talking about the guide sheet you got to go through and go over that way. I was like, man, if I would have done that, I was like, you can forget about that. So, I love what you said. They want to see everyone win, and that's phenomenal. If you have a burning desire to get out of where you are in your life, to whether it's make an extra income, or if you want to pay off your bills. One thing that we highlight here is our debt elimination is the most debilitating thing in the United States. People are dealing with it on a daily basis. And maybe this can help you pay off your debt. And Lesa, I think with the flexibility of our industry, because I always tell people like, hey, this is the best part-time job in the world because you don't have a set schedule. You can
Right.
do it on your own time, which is phenomenal. You don't have to go out and look and go through the training and the minutia, and it's like, oh, I can't do that work because I gotta do something with the kids, but I'm scheduled to work my part-time job. So Lesa, someone who had just heard that little snippet commercial and they mesh with you, they like you, and they want to like work with you on a daily basis, where they're looking for insurance and they want you to help them find the perfect insurance, or they're looking to get out of that crazy W-2 world and do this part-time or full-time. How can someone get a hold of you to get in contact to work with you?
Sure. They can call me at 717-376-5400. You'll find me on Facebook under Lesa Fair, Fair Kurtz, Kurtz.
Awesome. Well, Lesa, we'll put your Facebook down in the description as well. That's the best way. I always just say, reference this conversation of what you've heard to Miss Lesa, so she knows where you're coming from. Put your first and last name, in there as well. And Lesa, thank you for joining me on this week's episode of Cornerstone Conversations. I think this is going to be phenomenal for people to hear. This was definitely different than what we've done in past. I love how we got into the depths of running appointments, setting the table. I've relearned something there of what you said, and guiding. So you learn something even when doing this. So thank you again. Again, guys, we are on Instagram, the Cornerstone Group _. Hit that like button on there. If there is no, not like, I'm sorry, follow us on Instagram. Hit the follow button. Follow us on Facebook. Lesa, I said this last week. For the people who are still out on Facebook, I know I'm still am, but I don't feel like it's the most popular thing anymore. On Facebook, the Cornerstone Group, we're on Facebook and on YouTube. Hit that notification bell, subscribe to the Cornerstone Group Life so you don't miss these awesome conversations and other calls that we do through the week. Lesa, thank you again for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for having me. You as well.